My son and his wife said you eat but don't help. So why are you still here? Those words tossed out so carelessly cut deeper than any diagnosis. Marlene didn't even lift her eyes from her phone. She eats like a pig and does nothing. She murmured, her voice as cold as the leftover peas on the table. I'm not her babysitter. Maybe she should take the hint and get out before I have to kick her out myself. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. But David, my son, just kept eating, never once looking my way. It was like I'd become invisible in the house I built, just an old shadow haunting the kitchen. The ache in my knees throbbed, a sharp reminder of too many years spent on my feet. My hands, stiff from arthritis, trembled as I set down my fork. I could feel the dull, constant weight in my chest, the familiar pain of an aging heart that skips beats of lungs that wheeze on cold nights, of hips that creak with every stair climbed. I'd survived shingles, high blood pressure, that terrible fall last Christmas, when I broke my wrist trying to change a light bulb. I'd raised this family while fighting migraines, insomnia, and the slow blur of cataracts clouding my world. Every pill in the bathroom was a tally of battles won just to stay present for them. But now none of it mattered. In a single moment, a lifetime of sacrifice was swept away, erased by a whisper, sealed by a son's silence. I wondered if anyone at this table even remembered the mother who once saved their lives night after night. Would you have stayed? Or would you have walked away too? I always thought of myself as the glue of this family. Even after Mark passed, everyone assumed I'd be fine. Elaine, you're the strong one, my friends used to say. So when David asked me to move in, I told myself it was only for a season, just until the loneliness faded. At first, it felt like belonging. Toby's laughter filled the hallway. David's old baseball trophies sat on my new dresser. Marlene even baked her famous apple crisp that first Sunday, saying, "Your family, Elaine. We're lucky to have you here." But the cracks showed up sooner than I wanted to admit. It began with little things, my slippers vanishing, that old teacup from my wedding missing from the shelf. When I asked, Marlene would just smile thinly. "Maybe you misplaced it, Mom." Conversations grew shorter. At dinner, Marlene and David talked around me, never to me. One night as I passed the den, I caught only whispers. "She's slowing down. You can't expect her to remember everything, or worse. Once the new policy goes through, things will be simpler for everyone." I started finding my mail, especially anything marked insurance or medical, opened on the counter. My medicine box was moved. Sometimes my phone disappeared for days and always reappeared in strange places. The worst part was David's silence. My own son shrinking further away each week, never meeting my eyes. Jokes about old folks grew sharper, nudges more frequent. "Why don't you stay at Jean's for a week?" "You could use a change of scenery, Mom." Or, "Don't tire yourself out, Mom. Let us handle things from now on." One evening, I overheard Marlene say quietly, "She won't last forever. Once the paperwork clears, we'll all be better off." David just muttered, "Don't rush her. She's still Toby's grandma." I wish I could say I was surprised. But arthritis made every morning a battle. My heart ached in more ways than one. Every pill, every creak in my hip, every sleepless night. Reminders of all the years I carried this family, of how invisible a mother can become. Still, I kept the small rituals, baking cookies for Toby, folding David's shirts, tucking my jewelry box under the bed. The last thing that was truly mine. Sometimes, standing in the quiet kitchen, I'd wonder, was I really that forgetful? Or was I just being erased piece by piece? Why did Marlene keep asking about my doctor, my will, my bank account? And what was in that new insurance envelope with my name on it, opened and never explained? If you were me, would you confront them? Or would you keep quiet, watching for the next crack to split wide open? Some betrayals feel like thunder, sudden, loud, unforgettable. But this one was quieter. It arrived in whispers, in glances I wasn't meant to catch, in the feeling of being watched in my own home. It began with the doctor's appointment that Marlene insisted on joining. She smiled brightly for the nurse, but when the doctor asked how I'd been, she answered for me. Elaine's memory isn't what it used to be. She's been getting confused sometimes, losing things. I tried to protest, but Marlene squeezed my arm, her nails digging in just enough. David didn't come at all. Afterward, Marlene took the prescription slip before I could read it. "I'll handle your refills from now on, Elaine. Just let me know if you need anything," she said. Something in her voice made me feel 5 years old again. The next day, my bank called unusual activity new logins. I was careful, always have been, but suddenly money was missing from my checking account. When I asked David, he frowned. "Maybe you made a mistake, Mom." "It happens." Marlene patted my hand. "You know, online scams target people your age all the time. Let us handle things." I didn't believe them. I started keeping a small journal, writing down every odd thing. Dates, numbers, little details that might matter later. Insurance paperwork left open. Prescription changed without my approval. A stranger calling asking about a policy update. One afternoon while they were out, I went searching for my jewelry box key. Inside, under the faded velvet lining, I found my old marriage documents, the house deed, and tucked behind a photo of David as a boy, a new envelope. It was addressed to me but already opened a letter from the insurance company, talking about a beneficiary change, effective soon. My hands shook. My name was still on everything. But I saw at the line about pending confirmation from all parties. Had they been trying to change something behind my back? At dinner that night, Marlene brought it up with her signature smile. "You know, Elaine, sometimes it's best to have everything sorted out, just in case. You don't want things getting messy for Toby, right?" She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "It's probably time to update your will. You can trust us to help." David nodded, not meeting my eyes. I saw the way his shoulders slumped, the worry lines on his face deeper than ever. "I just want what's best for you, Mom," he whispered. But trust doesn't come so easy after a lifetime of sacrifice, when you sense the air thick with plans you weren't invited to. That night, I called Jean. "I think I'm in trouble," I said. Jean didn't hesitate. "You want me to come get you, Elaine? Or call the lawyer?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to forgive, to pretend I'd misunderstood. But another part, the tired, stubborn piece, that had survived Mark's cancer, that had raised a son alone for years, that still baked cookies on Saturdays, refused to be erased. Instead, I started making copies of bank statements, of the house deed, of every insurance letter and prescription change. Days blurred. Toby started drawing pictures for me, leaving them under my pillow. One was a stick figure, Grandma with a cape, and a big red heart. "Don't be sad, Nana," he said one night, curling up next to me. "You always make the monsters go away." Sometimes I wondered if Toby sensed what was happening, if children always know more than we want them to. The cracks in our home widened. Marlene began locking the mailbox, changing passwords, double-checking every bottle in the medicine cabinet. David spent longer and longer in the garage. He stopped coming to say goodnight. I heard Marlene on the phone late one night. "I'm tired of waiting. She's not going to last forever. Once the insurance kicks in, we'll finally be set." The next day, I found my car keys missing. Marlene said I must have lost them again. "You really shouldn't be driving, Elaine. It's not safe. Just let us handle things from now on." I almost believed her. But that night, I locked my bedroom door and lay awake. The house too quiet, the weight of secrets pressing on my chest. I thought about my mother's voice years ago, warning, "Don't ever let them make you invisible, Elaine." How much of me had they already erased? How much more would they take if I let them? I picked up the phone and dialed Jean again this time, not just to talk. "Jean, do you know a good lawyer? Someone who can look at house deeds, insurance, all of it." She didn't miss a beat. "I do. His name's Mr. Harris. He's the best in town. I'll set up the meeting." The next morning, I tucked Toby's drawing into my purse, held the copies close, and left for Jean's. For the first time in years, I felt the smallest glimmer of hope. Not fear power. A quiet plan taking shape. But even as I stepped out the door, I heard Marlene's voice floating from the kitchen. "She's getting suspicious. We need to hurry before she changes her mind." Would you trust your family to do what's right? Or would you trust your instincts, even if it means losing everything you love? It's strange the things you notice when you finally decide to pay attention. At Jean's kitchen table, I sat holding a mug of coffee that tasted like the past real strong, laced with the comfort of old friendship. Jean watched me carefully like she'd been waiting for years to have this talk. "Elaine, you know I always said something was off," she murmured, sliding a notepad across to me. "Let's get everything in writing before you forget the details." I nodded, heart-pounding. For the first time, I told someone everything about the insurance letters, the missing money, Marlene's strange interest in my will, and David's silence. Jean listened without flinching. "You need to see Mr. Harris as soon as possible. Don't tell them. Don't go home alone." The next morning, the lawyer's office was cold and formal, the air heavy with old paper and secrets. Mr. Harris, with silver hair and calm eyes, listened as I laid out my files. He read quickly sometimes, pausing to underline a phrase or jot a note. When he finished, he looked up. "Elaine, you are still the legal owner of your home. No change in beneficiary is valid without your clear consent and signature. And you have every right to control your own finances." I blinked. The weight in my chest eased just a little, but with that relief came something new. A quiet fury and a sense that I'd let this go on too long. That evening, I called David. "I need to talk," I said, my voice steady. He came to Jean's house alone, eyes tired, stubble on his jaw. We sat in the living room, memories crowding the walls, photos of him as a boy holidays I thought we'd all cherished. "I know about the insurance," I said quietly, "and the will, and the house." He flinched, shame passing over his face like a shadow. "Mom, it's not what you think. Marlene's just scared. She thinks if something happened to you, we'd be stuck. The hospital bills, the mortgage. She wanted security. What about my security?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He looked away. I didn't know what to do. She kept saying it was best for everyone. We sat in silence. I realized then how small he'd become, how much pressure he must have felt caught between a wife desperate for control and a mother clinging to dignity. "I just wanted a little gratitude, David. A little trust." He wiped his face. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have spoken up." Outside, the wind rattled the windows the same way it had the night Mark died. I felt the old ache in my hip, the scars of 100 sacrifices. But I also felt stronger. I had proof I had a plan. And for the first time in months, I had an ally, even if it was only myself. But leaving Jean's a car idled across the street, a shape in the shadows. Later, my phone buzzed with a text from Marlene. "Where are you? Toby's asking for you." Underneath another message sent just a minute later. "If you try to take what's ours, you'll regret it." I froze. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a threat. I called Mr. Harris. He was calm. "Do not reply. Change every password, move every document, and do nothing alone. If you feel unsafe, call me or Jean immediately." The next morning, Jean's neighbor, an old friend from Mark's union, knocked at the door. He pressed an envelope into my hand, whispered, "Found this by your mailbox. Inside a copy of my new insurance policy. Except the beneficiary's name had been changed, typed over in bold Marlene Taylor. Not even David." I felt sick. Everything made sense now, the pills, the missing bank cards, the mistakes that made me look forgetful. Marlene wanted more than security, she wanted it all. I sat with Jean, the policy open between us. "Maybe she's scared too," I said softly. "Maybe she thinks the only way to survive is to take everything." Jean squeezed my hand. "Or maybe she's just greedy, Elaine. But you're not alone. We're going to fix this." Still, I hesitated. Was it betrayal to fight back? Or betrayal to let myself disappear? I stared at the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, thinking of Toby's drawings, my mother's old recipe book, the wedding ring Mark gave me on a snowy night decades ago. Who gets to decide what a mother is worth? My phone buzzed one more time, a message from Toby himself. "I miss you, Nana. When are you coming home?" A lump caught in my throat. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't just be about me. It would be for every woman who's ever been made invisible by the people she loves. I pressed save on every file, packed my bag, and called Mr. Harris back. "It's time to finish this," I said. Mr. Harris called early the next morning. "There's something you should know, Elaine." I reviewed the paperwork. The insurance company flagged irregularities. Someone tried to forge your signature. That's a felony. My breath caught a mix of fear and strange relief. Finally, I wasn't imagining it. We made a plan. Quiet, methodical, one step at a time. Mr. Harris would file a fraud report. I would gather every document, every password, every letter Marlene had ever touched. Jean became my shield. She watched every exit, every stranger. We were careful, no sudden moves, no angry texts, no accusations. Quiet revenge is best served patient. That afternoon I returned to the house when no one was home. The rooms looked smaller somehow. I went straight to my closet and opened the safe, a little fireproof box Mark had insisted on years ago. I found the original deed, a copy of my will. The insurance policy, birth certificates, photos, the ring he gave me our first Christmas. My whole life packed into one box. For a moment I just stood there, breathing in the weight of memory. Then a noise, front door keys jangling. I slipped out the back, clutching the safe, heart pounding, like a girl sneaking out past curfew. John was waiting in her car, engine running. "Everything." I nodded. "Everything." At Mr. Harris's office, we opened the box. He smiled. "You did well, Elaine. You just saved yourself a world of trouble." He made copies, started the process of transferring assets to a protected trust, only in my name, with a special clause for Toby and no one else. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd given away. Days passed. I kept my distance from home. Marlene sent frantic texts. "Where are you?" "David's worried sick. If you've taken anything, it's theft." I ignored them. Instead, Jean and I made cookies, drank strong coffee, laughed like we hadn't in years. I felt lighter, even as my bones ached from the stress. But inside, a storm brewed. David finally called. "Nana, can I talk to you?" It was Toby's voice, quiet and uncertain. "Mommy and Daddy are fighting a lot." "Are you mad at us?" My heart broke, but I stayed strong. "Never at you, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just have to fix things." Later, David left a voicemail. "Mom, I don't know what's happening. Marlene says you're taking everything. Please come home, talk to me." It hurt, but I stayed away. Mr. Harris reassured me, "You are not the villain, Elaine. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty. It's wisdom." I started to see it all clearly. How many years I'd minimized my needs. How often I'd handed over control for the sake of peace. I saw Marlene's hunger for security morph into greed. I saw David's weakness, his need to please everyone but himself. And I saw my own strength, quiet but unbreakable. A week later, a sheriff's deputy delivered an official letter to Marlene and David at the house. Notice of fraud investigation. Freeze on joint accounts. New orders regarding insurance policies requiring my presence and consent. The reaction was immediate. My phone exploded with calls, angry messages, even pleas from David. "Marlene says we'll lose the house." "What are you doing?" "I trusted you." "How could you do this to us?" I almost wavered. Almost. But that night, Jean found me crying quietly at her kitchen table. "I don't want to be cruel," I whispered. "I just wanted to be safe. I just wanted them to see me." She squeezed my hand. "You gave them every chance, Elaine. They made their choices. Now you're making yours." In the dark, my phone pinged again. This time it was Toby. A photo, the drawing of the grandma in a cape. A message. "Come home soon, Nana. I need you." I pressed the drawing to my chest, heart torn. Revenge didn't feel like winning. But maybe it wasn't about revenge at all. Maybe it was about reclaiming dignity. Teaching my son that mothers are not invisible, that boundaries matter. I called Mr. Harris in the morning. "It's time for the next step." We prepared documents to cancel every policy freeze, every account revoke, every power of attorney that Marlene and David had gotten their hands on. We sent notices, updated passwords, and changed the locks on my name. Every click, every signature felt like breathing again after years underwater. Then one last move, I quietly removed David and Marlene from my will, leaving everything to Toby and a small donation to the women's shelter Jean volunteered at. It was not out of spite but clarity. Those who tried to erase me would not profit from my silence. I told no one, kept the secret close, smiled at Jean across her kitchen table. Outside, the sun was rising, the first I'd noticed in months. But I knew the storm was only beginning. David and Marlene would not take this quietly. Would you have the courage to fight for your dignity, even if it means losing the only family you have left? Nothing about standing up for yourself feels heroic in the moment. That week, the air in Jean's house was thick with tension. Every time the phone rang, I braced myself. Sometimes it was David's voice, raw with confusion and pain. Sometimes it was Marlene's brittle and cold, demanding answers. "I can't believe you'd do this to your own family. You're tearing us apart, Elaine." Over what, some old papers? I let the words wash over me, holding tight to Jean's kitchen table, to my safe box, to every hard-won inch of self-respect. But the world outside moved on. At the post office, I saw neighbors who nodded kindly, not knowing the storm brewing behind my smile. I still baked cookies for Toby, dropping them at school with a note. I still called the pharmacy to check on my refills. The ordinary things felt like anchors, proof that I was still myself, still here, still Elaine. Then the official letters arrived. From the insurance company, policies frozen pending investigation. From the bank, all joint accounts locked until further notice. A notice from the county pending fraud review addressed to me, and pointedly to David and Marlene. That's when the doorbell rang one gray afternoon. I opened the door to find David rain-soaked shoulders, hunched eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. For a moment, he just stood there, the little boy I'd once held after bad dreams. "Mom, please, you don't have to do this. Marlene's scared. I'm scared. We're losing everything. Just come home. We'll fix it together." His voice shook. I saw, maybe for the first time in years, how trapped he felt, caught between his wife's schemes and his own guilt. "I didn't want to hurt you," he whispered. "But Marlene," she wouldn't let it go. I wanted to reach out, to hold him, to forgive. But I also remembered every time he'd stayed silent, every look away, every time he let Marlene's words bruise me, instead of standing up. "David, I needed you to see me. Not just as a problem to solve or a bill to pay, but as your mother. Someone worth protecting, too." He buried his face in his hands. "I don't know how to fix this, Mom. I'm so sorry." A long silence. The rain drummed on the windows. Then quietly I asked, "Did you know what she was doing? The insurance, the will, the accounts?" He shook his head. "Not everything. She told me it was just paperwork, just for emergencies." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. The anger in me flickered, replaced by something softer, grief, maybe. Or understanding. We talked for hours, the kind of conversation I'd longed for, since Mark died, messy, honest, full of regret and small hopes. But when David left, promising to talk to Marlene, promising to try, I knew nothing would be easy. That night, I found a note slipped under Jean's door. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. Watch your back." No name, but the handwriting was familiar. Sharp, precise, the way Marlene signed every holiday card. I turned the note over and over, heart pounding. Was she angry enough to retaliate? Would she turn David against me, or worse, try to take Toby away? Jean was calm, but I saw the worry in her eyes. "Don't go anywhere alone, Elaine. If you feel unsafe, call the police first, then me." We changed the locks, kept the lights on, checked every shadow. I learned to sleep with my phone beside me. Keys under the pillow safe box at the foot of my bed. Through it all, I kept a journal. Every message, every visit, every time I saw Marlene's car, parked across from Jean's house, engine running. Was she watching? waiting for me to slip up. But even with the fear, there was a growing strength in me, something I hadn't felt in years. I saw my own reflection, hair grayer, eyes clearer, spine a little straighter. I was done being erased. One day, a package arrived for me, a plain envelope, no return address. Inside, copies of my canceled insurance policies, a check from the insurance company, refunding my overpayments, and a letter from Mr. Harris. You are free and clear. Everything is now in your name, safe and legal. No further actions pending. I exhaled shaky but relieved. It wasn't over family wounds run deep, but the worst was behind me. I had protected myself, my legacy, and most important, my sense of worth. But as I set the papers aside, my phone buzzed. A single message from David. Toby's been asking for you. He drew you another picture. We're figuring things out. And beneath it, a blocked number 1 line. You'll regret crossing me. The battle lines were drawn, but so were the boundaries. What happens next would test the meaning of family, love, and forgiveness one last time. If you were in my shoes, would you finally let go? Or would you open the door just one more time? Sometimes healing isn't soft. Sometimes it arrives with thunder. It was a Thursday evening when everything came to a head. I had just finished folding Toby's newest drawing into my journal. Another superhero grandma cape flying. Heart shining when there was a knock at Jean's door. Jean opened it to find David standing there, shoulders slumped, eyes rimmed red. Behind him, Marlene waited, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. The tension between them felt electric, like a storm about to break. We need to talk, David said quietly, his voice raw. Jean glanced at me. I nodded, heart-thumping hands clasped tightly in my lap. We sat at the kitchen table, me, David, Marlene, Jen. No lawyers, no threats. Just the broken pieces of a family, laid bare. Marlene spoke first, her voice sharp. You've humiliated us. You ruined our reputation. You locked us out of everything. You think you can just take back your life and leave us with nothing. David's voice trembled. Marlene, stop. Mom, can we just talk? I looked at my son. For the first time in years, he looked truly lost. I saw a man crumbling under the weight of regret and misplaced loyalty. Marlene, I said gently, what did you really want? Was it money, safety, or was it control? She glared. You always played the victim, Elaine. You made us beg for help, and now you act like we're monsters. We're your family. The words stung, but I saw something else, fear, desperation. Marlene was terrified of being left behind, of a world she couldn't control. None of this had to happen, I said. You wanted security, but you tried to take it by force, by secrets, by erasing me. Family isn't built on threats or signatures. It's built on trust. David's head dropped into his hands. I let it all happen, he said, voice cracking. I let you both hurt each other because I was afraid of choosing sides. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Marlene. I failed you both. Silence. Then Marlene broke, tears slipping down her cheeks. I didn't know how to ask for help. I thought if I had everything, if I controlled it all, I'd never be powerless again. For the first time, I felt my anger soften. I know what it's like to be afraid, I whispered. But you hurt me, Marlene. You tried to erase me from my own life. That's not love. That's fear talking. Jean cleared her throat gently. Elaine has every right to protect herself. You all have a choice, start over. Or keep fighting until there's nothing left. There at that old kitchen table, everything spilled out. David's shame. Marlene's grief, my own loneliness all laid bare. No one yelled. No one left. For the first time, we really listened. But when it was over, Marlene stood. I need time, she said. I don't know if I can forgive you. I nodded. Take all the time you need. I'm done being invisible, but I'm not done being a mother. If you ever need a place at my table again, ask with respect. David hugged me, awkward, broken, but real. I want you in Toby's life, Mom. I want to make this right." As they left, the air felt clearer. Not fixed, not perfect, but real. Jean looked at me and smiled. "You did it, Elaine. You broke the cycle." But the story wasn't quite over. Later that night, I opened my email to find a message from the insurance investigator. "The case is closed. The attempted fraud is on record. All assets are protected. If you choose, you may file additional charges. Let us know how you wish to proceed." I stared at the screen, a swirl of relief and sorrow in my chest. Justice was in my hands, but forgiveness was too. For a moment, I sat in the silence, feeling every scar and every strength that brought me here. The past couldn't be changed, but the future maybe could. If you had the power to close the door forever, would you? Or would you leave it open, just a crack for a different ending? Time doesn't heal all wounds, but it teaches you which scars to carry and which ones you can finally set down. In the months that followed, the storm inside my family grew quieter. David brought Toby for Sunday visits always, with homemade bread and wide, hopeful eyes. We sat on the porch painting birdhouses, trading stories about superheroes and strong hearts. Marlene stayed away, sending short, polite texts, never quite ready to cross the bridge, but never burning it either. Some days I missed the noise, the arguments, the bustle of a house full of people who needed me. Other days I cherished the silence, because it meant I could finally hear my own voice. The documents were all settled, the accounts secured, the insurance now a distant memory, only my name in bold at the top. It wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about taking back the years I'd given away, the dignity I'd almost forgotten I deserved. I used some of the money to start a weekly potluck at the local community center, a table open for anyone feeling invisible or alone. We called it Second Sundays, and before long, other mothers, grandmothers, and even a few fathers began to show up, each with a story and a dish to share. One afternoon, after everyone had gone home, I stood in the empty hall, sunlight catching the old wedding ring on my hand. The scars were still there, some from betrayal, some from love, all from living. But as I watched Toby chase fireflies outside, I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living on my own terms, with the door still open, just a crack for anyone willing to try again. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, know this: you are not alone. Sometimes the quietest voice carries the most strength. Sometimes setting a boundary is the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself. Would I do it all again, maybe? Maybe not. But I know now that being a mother isn't about being needed. It's about knowing your worth and never letting anyone take it away. If this story touched you, or if you have one of your own, share it in the comments below. Someone out there needs to hear it. And if you want more stories about healing, justice, and quiet strength, make sure to subscribe and join us next Sunday at the table. Because family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the ones who stay when everyone else has gone.